Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Weighing In, brought to you by USA Wrestling, the national governing body for wrestling in the United States, and by Nike Wrestling. Go to athleteps.com for all of your Nike and USA Wrestling branded gear. We have survived Halloween. We are in college wrestling season, boys. First of all, good GT, we got a new look, baby. What's going on? No shave November.
Had to start with a clean palette, new, just a fresh canvas for the wrestling season.
For painting the greatness that is your face.
Yeah, exactly. We're just gonna have Renoir or Monet come figure this out.
I'll take artists for 1,000, Alex.
Right.
Mark, you're over there smirking. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. I just thought maybe this is still Halloween and Grant's changed his look for us, but you're gonna stay that way, clean shaven, Grant, for the month?
I'll bring it all the way back. We'll just let it run for the entire month of November and then see where we take it from there.
All right.
I was looking at my calendar, GT. There's a chance I might sneak up to Ames that Sunday after Thanksgiving.
Yeah, the 26th.
Yeah, baby.
There'll be a lot of people in town.
A lot of people in town. So, all right, lots to talk about. God bless it. Let's start out with the Pan Am Games and just mention that there are two Pan Am events. These are the games, not the championships. This is the multi-sport event that GT just explained to me before we went on the air. This is not, I repeat, not the Olympic qualifier for the wrestling. And we're going to talk about it all in detail next week because, we're sort of halfway through it when we're recording this on Thursday morning. But GT, explain how the games are different for other sports, please.
So the Pan Am Games is basically a continental version of the Olympic Games. It's just a smaller version for just called the Pan American continent, or what our qualification system would be. We just had like the Asian Games, which is a huge deal for all of the Asian countries, which is basically just the mini Olympics for their continental championships.
Okay.
So with that being said, like, it's just a regional based Olympics event. It's a big deal. It's very, very, very well respected. And there is some Olympic qualification that goes on at the games. The wrestling Olympic qualification is done through a different governing body. So we're going to have the Pan Am Olympic Games qualifier in Acapulco, Mexico, I believe at the end of March.
Yes.
So there's just a lot of really cool stuff. I mean, the Pan Am Games in general is a really, really cool thing. There is also a Pan Am Championship, and then there's a Pan Am Olympic Games qualifier. So it's just our section that we compete in.
And I think, to be exact, the Olympic qualifier one is the weekend between the conference championships and the NCAA. And like, there's a challenge off process for two of the weights, like specifically on the men's side, where our country is not qualified at 57 and 65. And we talked about how it's super unlikely Vito or Dayton would probably try to get that spot because they'd have to go to the EIWA/Big 12s, then get down to 57 kilos. I don't know if there's a kilo allowance, but some version of that, and then come back, go to the NCAAs. Which started on Thursday and everybody arrives by Tuesday. So, but that's all correct, what you were saying, for sure. So let's talk about the U23s. On the Greco side, Mark, we were highlighted by Lout and Ishins. They both took 7th. Ishins had a pretty good tournament on the front side, didn't get pulled through very far on the back side. But, Lout especially is a guy that's had some good wins in college. So if you're coaching, I'm interested, like if you're Rob Cole, Tony Ramos, and you're coaching like a Lout, how does this work for him being able to, like, how much time do you give them off before they, jump back in?
Sure. I'd say probably 2 to 3 weeks, David. I mean, he's going to be in the room working out, obviously, but I think I'd do a lot of traveling with him for a few weeks to get us, everything back to where he needs to be. He's been spending most of his time doing Greco over the last month or so. So you want him to get oriented back into folk style wrestling, which is what he's going to do until, March. So I think it's important that they give him a little bit of time to get back into it because his mind's probably still reeling about things that he could have done in Greco. It's going through his mind. He needs to get that kind of washed out and get back into the frame of mind for folk style. That's what I would do.
Yeah, no, I would have. I think people should know we scheduled the framework of this podcast ahead of time, but not like we don't like. There's times like, well, I'm like, don't tell me on the air. I want to react organically, and that's exactly what I would do. And I think an obvious sentence is transitioning from Greco to folk style is a different transition than freestyle to folk style for sure, right? Like,
yes.
Half your body getting up off the bottom, riding again. I mean, I guess the riding part is different, is the same discrepancy. Edge rules, all these different things, right? Like attacking legs, defending legs is obviously something that he's going to have to get his body sort of rewired to. It's not like, it's going to take him 6 months, but I did both a lot, Greco and freestyle, and it does take a while. Your stance, everything is a fairly radical adjustment. So on the women's side, interesting tournament. I just pulled up the results here. Audrey Jimenez, well, we'll work backwards. Gomez and Lang DNP'd. Wachuku took 10th. Moore took 10th. Hauk took 8th. Kilty and XMP Moto Pettis took 5th. And then we had 3 in the finals. Audrey Jimenez made the finals, and you and I were talking about it. She didn't wrestle. Kennedy Blades lost in the finals, and then I want to have a separate conversation about Amita Lohr. Kennedy Blades had a great tournament to the finals. I think 10-0'd everybody, and then kind of got, out physical. Literally just that her opponent was a lot stronger than her. And GT, and I'm putting you on the spot here, and if you don't know, it's totally fine. Do we know why Jimenez didn't wrestle in the finals?
I talked to Gary Abbott at preseason nationals about it, and it was just that she was kind of a little banged up. So maybe got to the finals and just basically said, hey, my body's kind of had it. So just
nothing serious though.
No, nothing serious. I think just normal wear and tear, like where it's like, hey, listen, my shoulder or like whatever it is, just wrestling tournament stuff, right?
Yeah.
And she's not going to lose any RPI ranking. She's not going to lose any points in order to qualify. So
I think in general, if you don't know that, you're concerned, right? Because it's a big tournament, and if they don't wrestle in the finals, you worry about worst case. So I'm glad to hear it's not worst case. So Amita Lohr, 8th gold medal in all the different age groups that she's good at. When we count like how many medals, like Helen Maroulis has won, Kyle Snyder has won, like John Smith being 6 for 6, Burroughs having 7 gold. Those are all senior level, okay, which should deservedly so have a different category than age group stuff. But sometimes you do things at a different level, which validates the combination of that. Amita Lohr, I don't know the last time she lost a match. And you'd know better than me, GT, but I mean, it feels like it's been a really long time. And she's not wrestling, to quote my good buddy Greg Warren, she's not wrestling in the Afton Quadrangular. She's wrestling in big meets. So, and she's super young. And I think people don't know this. She was like 1 month, I think, too young to wrestle in the trials in 21 for the 20 Olympics. So there's an age thing there, right? GT, where there's a minimum or a maximum, or a minimum you have to be. So I'll go to you first. Where is she in history right now? And it's so nuts to say. I think she's 21 or 22 years old.
Oh. Well, it's going to be very, and once again, I'm very brand new to the USA Wrestling podcast and being a part of the media. So like my wrestling knowledge is just like me being a fan up until as of recent. So like me as a fan, I mean, me as like having a little bit of like understanding of wrestling, she has to be approaching probably one of the most decorated wrestlers in American wrestling history. Like she's got to be close.
Yeah.
Because like, I mean, Bruce Baumgartner, I think is like the GOAT in longevity. I think it was like 17 years, Mark. I can't remember if that's like how many US Open titles he won, and he wrestled in 4 straight Olympics, and
I'm trying to interrupt you. He has 13 senior world level medals, and it's like 4 of each, like 4 gold, 4 silver, 4 bronze, and then one other one. I can't, one of the other 3, and then a ton of Pan Ams and all that other stuff. Yeah, go ahead. I apologize.
Yeah, all of those, like for sure. And then we talk about JB and John and all these other guys, right? But like,
you're a little glitchy right now, GT.
In women's wrestling,
okay, go ahead.
I mean,
no, you're fine.
You got, just like some of the athletes from Japan, like in, like, I don't know, now we're talking global stuff, right? So like U.S. women's history, like Adeline and Helen are probably the most decorated women's athletes in longevity, I believe, for USA women's wrestling. Now, once again, I would love to have a conversation with Gary Abbott. But it's hard to put it in context on like what she's actually been about while she's like on this run. It's very difficult in order to put that into context because you just don't know, because she hasn't been to Olympic Games yet.
Yeah.
So, and I'd like to also state, like, for this, I don't care about non-Olympic versus Olympic weight classes. You're world champ or world champ. I think there's a caveat there that I would love to just tell people, like, hey, if you're a world champion, I don't care if do they have a world championship at your weight class, you're a world champion.
Yeah. I think, and then Mark, I'll come to you. I think what you're saying makes, first of all, her historical context is difficult to quantify. The other thing is she's so young. It's not like she's done or retiring or something. We're not having this conversation about Helen, in 2025, if she officially said, I'm done with competitive wrestling. Okay. The Olympic versus non-Olympic weight, I understand that caveat. And I also think GTU miss a compliment. I think you incorrectly labeled yourself as like, I'm just a fan. Like, no, just because we put you on a podcast, the reason why we put you on a podcast is because of your high level knowledge, especially of this stuff. Like, Mark knows the college season in and out, and he does a lot of the heavy lifting in these upcoming months. But those non-collegiate months, this is your wheelhouse. And you're on this podcast, because you're our friend, but because you're really smart about these subjects and can have immediate credibility. So, your opinion is significant, has significant importance in this conversation. When I look at her, to me, it's like building a resume, right? Like anybody, not anybody, you can get lucky and win state one time or something, right? Like you get really hot. Maybe somebody has a bad weight cut and you win it, right? And people go, well, I mean, David won it, but like Grant had pneumonia and Mark was fighting with his girlfriend. And then the guy in the finals, had a bad elbow. Okay. You win it a second time, you win a third time, you win a fourth time. If you're a 4-time state champ, nobody's talking about how lucky you got, period. And it's a much smaller level, obviously. But when you start stacking wins, stacking medals, that it's like Michael Jordan. Like why people consider him great isn't because he scored 63 or 46 with the flu. It's because he scored 20 almost every night. It's the consistency level. So, Mark, you and I talked about a little bit about this off the air. She's got to make a decision, right? She either goes to 68 or 76. If she goes to 76, she's going to wrestle off Gray. Well, Gray's in Final X. Kennedy Blades is there. 68 was Bruntel, who took 6th, so she didn't qualify the weight, and she was up. Like she is up from 65, kind of did the Zahid thing. It feels like for the sake of the team, USA Wrestling would be better off if she went 68. I have no idea how much weight she's cutting. She's obviously a very fit young lady. But, I mean, I guess I'll make an obvious sentence. You're pretty excited to see her in the Olympic trials coming up, right?
Yeah, I think she's, she's the face of one of the faces of the women's program right now for USA, if not the face, because of what she's been doing. I guess when I look at greatness, David, I kind of look at it very similar to what Grant looks at it, I think, is that she's doing something that nobody else has ever done that we know of here in the United States. And I'm not saying other countries haven't done this, but she, if I'm not mistaken, Grant, I think she's won 6 world titles in 2 years.
Yeah, probably.
Has anybody ever done that? Even come close? I've never heard of anybody winning 2 in 1 year. She's won 3 in 2 years, back to back. I mean, that's just amazing that she can go out there and wrestle all the competition that's available to her and dominate it from the get-go.
And she's wrestling up age groups. So people have to understand that, like if you're 19 and you're doing U20s, then it's like, okay, then I'm just going to go win U23s because I'm eligible for it. And then I'm going to
go win the seniors.
I'm going to win the seniors because I'm over 18, so I can do that too. So go ahead, GT.
Hey, that'd be a very interesting. I mean, we could get a roundtable of a whole bunch of, knights of the wrestling round table and do some historical digging. But I think also the one thing that Amit does of probably better than anybody that has the ability to do this is she wants those opportunities. Like there's probably guys that like whatever it is, let's say Gable Steveson, just to use an example. If he wanted to go to the U20s and then go to U23s and then try to go to senior worlds, I don't think he ever really tried to make that run. You know what I mean? Like Amit is doing it. It's not like a theoretical discussion on whether or not like David Taylor would have ever done this prior, or like she's actually in the midst of that run. Like she's competing at all of these things. And it's like, well, she's just doing it.
Snyder's the one that pops into mind for me because he beat Varner at a young age. I don't know if he would have been U20 eligible, but he would have been U23 eligible for sure.
He was super close, I think, because I think he's the youngest ever. Well, take that back, because I think Amit beat him out for like the youngest world champion of all time, like by like I don't know, like a month or something.
Yeah, so probably the youngest on the men's side, and if they're that close, if they're nip and tuck. So, and what's interesting about this? The college season has an impact on this, right? Like, the men's college season has been so structured for so many years, and the women's is growing, but it hasn't been nearly as structured. And also at this point, it doesn't carry the same significance or the same publicity. I think what you have to give her credit for is at least 2 things. Number one, she's winning. Okay. She's not winning close matches. She's killing people. And number 2, she's laying it on the line, and she's wrestling. She's just wrestling all over the place. And GT, I think you said it like, hey, she's picking these spots. Or Mark, maybe you said, one of you guys said like, she's going to the tournaments. And she clearly has the right attitude on winning or losing, right? Like everybody and their uncle, we've all, cause like, the way it's being positioned, I was like, losing is not bad. Like it's how you get better. It's get out of your comfort zone. You're trying new things, all these things. It's super easy to say. When you're doing it, it's completely different. Like Mark's older than me. So if Mark's coaching me, like, David, don't worry about it. It's like, yeah, but you're in the chair. I'm the one where the other guy got his hand raised. And I don't want to learn today. I want to win today. So she's figuring out a way to test herself. She's still improving and figuring out a way to not lose while she's improving. So it's just ultra impressive. she, like you said, you guys said, she's one of the faces of our sport on the women's side right now, especially for USA Wrestling. She's also probably, if you had to pick a woman on our team right now to medal in 2028, I think she's the one you would pick. Like she's the one young enough, is going to probably do another quad and has the most credentials. Now, USA Wrestling's in great hands. We'll have people pop up. There'll be other hammers. But if you're trying to get involved and start understanding USA Wrestling on the women's side, and you're not going to do deep dive like a guy like Grant does, but you want to pick somebody to follow that's not going to retire anytime soon, she's probably the person you want to start following. And she's really good at jiu-jitsu. We've mentioned this before. Like, she's just an amazing athlete. And I think that's the other thing. It's not like a gender thing. Like, it's not like, well, she's good for a girl. She's just an amazing wrestler and combat sport athlete. So congratulations to her in the biggest of ways. Okay. I talked to Mark about this. I don't know if we're going to go backwards. We can pick it up later. I'll leave it on our docket. But Brock Mahler is going 157. So the Mizzou wrestle-offs happened. He wrestled Cam Steed, beat him 2-1. It was interesting because I saw the Mizzou guys in the spring, and I was just kind of talking to them about their lineup, and they were super ambiguous in the middle because I was, I'm like, certain either Crawford or Seltzer, Josh Edmond, Brock Mahler, Cam Steed. And they're like, well, we're pretty good. Maybe Mahler can go 57. I'm like, why would Mahler go 57? I think they must have known Mahler didn't want to go 49, So for now, he would be at 57. We were texting about this. He'd probably come in ranked 7th based on the returning All-Americans. But that doesn't take into account a Cody Chittum, who's a little banged up right now, according to Dresser, but will be back soon, or Amir Shapiro. So it feels like it's a harder weight. Mahler's All-American every time, so he's clearly earned the right to go what weight he wants to go. I think for the team, if Mahler went 49 and Steed went 57, and you make the argument Steed went really close with Mahler, it might be better for them. The good news for Missouri and Mahler is they get a really big test fairly early. If everybody's healthy, he's going to wrestle Ja'Cory Teamer in 2.5 weeks. So, then like if he beats Ja'Cory Teamer, he's fine. And if he doesn't beat Ja'Cory Teamer and loses close, maybe he's fine. And if he lost badly, I'm pretty certain at 49. So just something to keep an eye on. Our picks are wrong there if he stays at 57, but that happens every year. We got one guy off or two, and, it is what it is. So just wanted to put that out there. Echemendia beat Swiderski. Gavin Hoffman is working his way down to 184. So that's going to be relevant when we talk about 184 in a minute. NWCA All-Star matchups are out. We're not going to talk about them today because we're going to try to get through a couple of these weight classes, at least 84 and 97. But some great matchups at Penn State. I think Penn State has 5 or 6 guys wrestling, be streamed live on Flow. That meet's always had historically some really cool ones, and there are some really interesting matchups at a couple of these weights that I think people will be excited to see. So we talked about this. Okay, so let's get to 184. Get to the rankings here. Share the screen. Okay, if you're watching this at home, folks, we're on fantasygrade.com. Our buddy CT over there combines the ranking Intermat, Flow, and Win, and does a composite average. To kind of review everything, at 184, returning, and a couple of these guys are up or down weights, but Aaron Brooks was first, Keckheisen was second, Heidley was fourth, Munoz was sixth, Gavin Kane was eighth, Salazar was round of 12, Saldano, Jacob Nolan, Colton Hawks were round of 16, round of 24, Whitlake, Assad, Pinto, Malchewski, Heller, Hoos, and Key. Of those guys, Brooks going up, Heidley going up, Whitlake going down, and then Dustin Plott comes up. So the current rankings Kekheisen 1, Truax 2, Munoz 3, Plot 4, Feldkamp 5, Gavin Kane 6, Salazar 7, Saldano 8, Nolan 9, Malchewski 10, Colton Hawks 11, Pinto 12. Jonathan Lowe's an interesting guy coming off injury at 15. Rylan Rogers is in here as a freshman. Seth Shoemate is in here. But again, maybe Gavin Hoffman. Kyle Valencia is a name people probably recognize. So to me, this feels like a weight where we don't – and Truax came down. Excuse me. Plot came up, Truax came down. Basically, Brooks and Truax flip-flop. I think Kekheisen's the favorite. You don't have a defending champ here. It's always interesting when guys change weight classes. So 3 of your top 4 guys all wrestled a different weight class last year. A couple transfers in here. Truax is a transfer. Feldkamp was a transfer. Lots to break down. Mark, general thoughts on the weight class?
Yeah, it's not one of the strongest weights this year, in my opinion, at the NCAA, but it's a good weight. There's probably 15, 16 guys that you could make an argument that could place in the top 8. So it goes down quite a ways, but I still think they got it fairly right on top. I think the top 3 are kind of right where they should be. Plot's kind of interesting to me, just not knowing going up a weight what he's going to look like. But, yeah.
He just came off of U23s at 79 kgs GT, which is 174 and change. Went 0-1, lost a tiebreaker match. So probably the last time he weighs 174.2, I think it is, forever. Maybe he'll never do that again. So your thoughts in general before we start making picks. Mark, I'm probably going to come to you for picks first if you want to start percolating on that. GT thoughts.
Yeah, this is an interesting weight class from the standpoint that, like, some of the names from last year have moved up to 97. So, like, Brooks and Hidlay. Parker Kekheisen has been a journeyman at this weight class for a really long time. So I think, like, very deserving of number 1 seed. I think he is by far, like, the leader in the clubhouse, because he's been at this weight class for a long time. I think, yes, for you guys, your point, like, they got the top 3 right, Mark. I think that this is exactly how this should be played out to begin the season. And I'm really excited about, I would say, the competitiveness, or like just the rest of the field, how that's going to play out this season. Because I think that this tournament is going to be seeded wild from like 6 through 15.
Yeah.
I think the guys are going to rise up to, like, there's going to be a top 5, and you're like, okay, thank God we've spread out the talent. And then 6 through 15, it could be like anybody could, like, wind up being the 15 seed. That's a really, really talented wrestler that probably doesn't deserve the 15, but could have been, the 7 seed. So it's like, okay, like, how are we all going to play this out?
We've all seen this where, like somebody like me has an average season and then wins a conference tournament and beat a couple guys that I lost to in the regular season. But somebody else has a great regular season and then has a subpar conference tournament. And the seating committee is left with a very difficult decision on how much do you weigh the whole season versus the 2 days in March. And I think that's what GT's saying. Like, you could see somebody, a bunch of these guys are sort of one-point matches, although there'll be a little less one-point matches this year with 3-point takedowns. So maybe a better way, like 1 takedown matches, where they're coin flippy. And maybe GT's better than me, and maybe 6 out of 10 times he would beat me, but there's 4 out of 10 times I would win, and maybe I sneak one. Maybe he beats me in the regular season, beats me in a tournament, and I sneak one at the conference, and then, how does that affect seeding? So Feldkamp is also a transfer. This weight has a lot of stuff. The other thing that's interesting is Truax. He's gone up every year. When I talked to Giannuma last year around this time, he said Truax was walking around like at 188 pounds. Because we were at the Mizzou invite, and I was like, you don't look very big. And he's like, he's not. He just doesn't like to cut weight. And he's good enough to not cut weight, which is always nice. So I don't think he's cutting a lot. Like, I don't think like you have to wonder, well, I mean, he's coming way down. Is this going to be really hard on his body kind of thing? So interesting to see how he'll do. He obviously slots in perfectly, and his training partner situation is insane now, where you're in just on the college side, you're in between Starachi and Brooks. You know, you've got all those upperweight guys there on the international side, the DTs, the Bo Nichols, you know, even like a Kirk Fleet to play spar with, you know, Jake Varner, Kale, Casey. I think everybody's pretty familiar with the Penn State situation. So probably some things that he can learn and practice just from sparring, just the number of guys that are big that can put their hands on him. They're different than he had at Pollard. So, all right, Marco, let me get down here. All right. Who do you have at 184?
I've got Truex winning. And I'll explain why, just because, and you went through it, David, just because of the room he's in. And that's going to kind of be a theme for a lot of people. When you're in a room that tough, you're either going to get better or you're not going to do anything. And he's been there. He's beaten Parker before. 2 years ago, he beat him and then lost to him for third and fourth, I think it was. So, I mean, he knows how to wrestle him. And I just think his competition in the room gives him a big advantage. So I'm going to put him 1. I'm going to take Kekheisen 2. I'm going to go Munoz 3. I'm going to go Plot 4.
Slow down. Munoz 3.
Yep.
Plot 4.
Yep.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm going to go Kane 5.
Okay.
I'm going to go Feldkamp 6.
Okay.
I'm going to go Assad 7.
Okay.
And I'm going to go Salazar 8.
Salazar 8. Okay. So this is probably a good time to bring up Tom Brands did a press conference. I'm sure you guys saw it. Talked about one thing about Tom Brands. There isn't a subject he refuses to talk about. He may not give you the answer you want, but he'll talk about everything. And so the gambling decision apparently is going to come down 11/8, November 8. We're recording this on November 2. So theoretically, we'll record on the 9th, and we'll know about it next week. It seems to be, with the new interpretation of how things are going to go, that most of those guys, or all of them, are going to get cleared, maybe entirely, but if not, at least for the second half of the season, which frankly is all that matters when you're looking at rankings. Like, it doesn't matter if you can't wrestle a duel in November. And they do have a very interesting dual meet lineup for Cal Bap this weekend, which we'll get to the schedule, but they got a lot of new faces in there. All right, GT, let me go back here and get your picks.
All right. Tell me when you are ready.
I am ready, sir, because the first one I got to type, then they get copy and pasty, which is a lot easier for me.
Okay. Northern Iowa gets a national champion.
I
Parker
felt
Fifth.
confident you were going to make that pick. Yeah.
Go Panthers. All right. Oregon State gets a finalist. Munoz. Truax gets 3rd. Plot gets 4th. Feldkamp gets 5th. Now this is where it starts to get wild. Pinto gets 6th.
Okay.
Soldano gets 7th.
Okay.
Gavin Kane gets 8th.
Okay. You know, what's interesting is, and we do this, like, there's nothing, your guys are fairly different, and there's nothing here where you go, like, that's crazy, right? Like, they're both completely reasonable picks. I like Pinto, especially, like, as a guy that you picked that Mark didn't. But Mark's really good at this. So,
I for sure know that.
Yeah, Mark might be the best of the three of us at this. So, although none of us picked Lachlan McNeil like you did, GT, to be fair. So that's a hang your hat one. Yeah.
Every once in a while, you got to get like a wild pick and be like, oh yeah, no, of course that guy's going to win it. It's like, you're an idiot. Not a chance.
Yeah, for sure. I have Truex winning it for the reasons Mark said. I have Keckheisen second. I have Plot third. Probably a little prisoner of the moment. I just saw him down there. He looks big. He looks like healthy big. So Munoz, I think maybe we're sleeping on Munoz. Like he got to the semis and then got injured. And so he took sixth, almost like the Nebraska kid we talked about earlier. So, but I got him fourth. I'm going to go Pinto fifth. I'm going to go Feldkamp sixth. I'm going to go Gavin Kane seventh. And just so everybody knows, I'm from Missouri. I'm going to pick Colton Hawks eighth. Okay. At 197. So the returners here are Tanner Sloan was second. Stephen Buchanan was third a year ago. Rocky Elam was third. Bernie Truax was fourth, but he is now down to 184. Jacob Cardenas was eighth. Michael Beard, Silas Allred, Jackson Smith, Zach Bronigal all round of 12s. Round of 16s, Trumbull, who's taken an Olympic red shirt. Younger Bastida, who's up at 285. Luke Serber, Oklahoma State. Round of 24s, Owen Pence, Evan Bachman, Levi Hopkins, Gavin Hoffman, who we've talked about going down, Nick Stemmet, Max Shaw. Aaron Brooks moves up, chance to become a four-time champ. AJ Ferrari is waiting in the wings. I spoke to somebody in the family. Think it's fairly likely from the conversation he's going to wrestle in January. So I guess, there's just a ton of talent at this weight. Like if you look at Brooks, chance to be a four-timer. Sloan, finalist. Buchanan, finalist. Hidley, consistent top three. Rocky Elam, All-American U20 World Champion. Cardenas, U23 bronze medalist recently, right, GT? At 92 kgs. Silas Allred, who beat Max Dean. Jackson Smith, who's really good, had a bad ankle per Alex Clemson. Probably should have sat him on the lineup for 4 weeks during the season, and he wouldn't jump out of the lineup. So that's just the top 8. And then Beard, who can beat anybody on any given day. Bronigal, who I believe is also going to Olympic red shirt. Serber, Hoffman's going down. And then, Pence can't be in here at 97 because Allred is. I think Pence is going to go heavyweight. Poznansky's had really good results in the past. Luke Stout's a high ceiling guy. Max Stout is coming in at Pitt. Wyatt Volker, some legacy guys there. So a lot to look at here. GT, you can go first. What do you think?
All right. Aaron Brooks.
No, not picks. Not picks, just in general about the weight. No, we'll make picks. Sorry.
Oh, okay, yeah. This weight class got a humongous influx of talent with Hidley and Brooks and Buchanan all coming to the party. Once again, you got 3 of the 4 guys just that come in right away. That's outrageous amount of talent just comes in there. This spot, or the national champion that was, kind of a low-key just hitter, Nino Bonacorsi, 2-time champ, leaves this weight class, vacates it. This is a brand new weight class with a brand new champ this year. I'd say Brooks is a heavy favorite, world champ, 3-timer. I think that he's deserving of the number 1 ranking at this weight to just make sure that even though he's going up a weight class, which I know that we talk about a lot on the pod. It was like, you're not necessarily guaranteed anything because you've never been at that weight class. I think that he is very much deserving of going up and solidifying. Now, if Nino Bonacorsi was coming back, I'd have Brooks too, because it's a new weight class. Nino is the reigning champ.
And undefeated last year. Yeah.
Correct. So getting used to this ranking stuff. All right, guys. Like,
well, the other thing is Brooks looked gigantic at the U23s, and that was 189.2. Like, it looks like he's filling out. I mean, it makes sense if he's going to try to make 189 for the Olympic team, and he's our number 2 guy right now, to not be cutting to 184 all year. Marco.
Yeah, I agree with everything Grant said. I think when you bring back people like Buchanan, Hiley's, we've all seen him wrestle over the years, and he's very physical and likes to get after it. Rocky Elam, I think, is getting, and I'm not arguing where he's ranked right now at 5, but I think he's talented enough to make the finals. I really do. He's one of my dark horses to make some real noise at this weight. I talked about Tanner Sloan for years, how good he looked when he was a true freshman at the Midlands and beat Warner like a drum. Was able to turn him over and over again, how good he was on top. And then, he didn't have the year that I thought he'd have the next 2 years, but then he came out last year and wrestled like a beast. So it's a good weight. It's probably one of the deeper weights of the 10 that we have this year.
I think what's interesting when you look at the chart, like on the right, we're just using the averages, but like, for example, Stephen Buchanan's ranked 5th by win. That seems a little odd to me. Hidley's ranked 2nd by win. I don't know how you could put Hidley ahead of Sloan, who was a runner-up last year at the weight class. GT, I think I would do what you said if Nino was back. It would be hard, though. It would be hard to rank a guy that won the Worlds age group wise and has a chance to be a 4-timer and not rank him number 1. And then the interesting thing is, if Ferrari wrestled, I think you'd have to rank him. Mark, we would rank Ferrari 2, correct?
Right now, if he was on a lineup?
Yeah.
No, I think he'd probably be ranked number 1. He's a returning national champ. The last time he wrestled, he won it. It was at this weight. And I think with Aaron Brooks being a 3-timer, I understand. But, I mean, he's coming up a weight. I think it would have to be AJ 1 and Brooks 2. I'm not saying that's how I would pick the weight to, play out, but that's where I would rank him.
I would go Brooks 1 because of recency. He's wrestled more recently. Ferrari hasn't wrestled a match in 21 months. But again, that'd probably be something, GT, where we would call you and go, okay, break the tie.
Yeah.
So, because Mark's logic, Mark's reasoning is super sound. I think mine is fairly sound too. And sometimes you just have to put a number next to a name when you're doing these rankings. And so we should say, again, Mark and I did this for a lot of years. It is a thankless job. It takes a ton of work, and it's hard to get it right. And people miss stuff, and it's just part of the game because there's a lot of stuff to catch out there. So, all right, GT, do you want to go first at this weight, or do you want to defer to the senator from Iowa?
I would love to make sure that Mark doesn't pick Jacob Warner, so I want to have him go first.
Oh my God, Jacob!
Is Jacob an option this year, Grant?
You never know.
Who knows, right?
Hey, you never know. There's a COVID year. There's a COVID year. Maybe there's an extra semester. Who knows?
He wants to go back and pick up Marinelli, pick up Jay Nyerman, get the gang back together one more time.
Yeah,
basically the picture from the Olympic Training Center, get Spencer Lee in there, get all those guys for one last run.
I still think a healthy Kemmer could win 174. I truly still believe that, but obviously we didn't get a healthy Kemmer. All right, I'll go first twice in a row. I don't care. I'm not scared. I'm going to go Aaron Brooks, number 1, David. Start typing.
I am.
I'm going to go AJ Ferrari. number 2.
Yep.
I have no idea where he's going to wrestle. I'm guessing Iowa, but who knows? I'm going to go Buchanan number 3.
Okay.
Rocky Elam 4.
Okay.
Hidley 5.
Okay.
Tanner Sloan 6. I'm going to go Allred 7.
Okay.
And I'm going to go Smith from Maryland 8.
Okay. I got to go back and fill in schools, but I got you. Let me say these back to you real quick. You got Brooks, Ferrari, Buchanan, Elam, Hidley, Sloan, Allred, Smith.
Yes.
GT.
All right. Brooks,
Okay.
Buchanan,
Okay.
Hidley,
Okay.
Sloan,
Okay.
Elam,
Okay.
Allred,
Okay.
Cardenas,
Okay.
Serber.
Cardenas. Serber. Yeah. So you don't think Ferrari's wrestling this year, obviously, right?
I have zero indication that he is going to be there available for second semester. As of right now, this is my run.
If you knew for sure he was going to wrestle, where would you pick him? I'm just curious.
If he was available to wrestle, I think he could probably make finals. But once again, he's been out of the sport for a while, like coming back at a very super high. I'm also kind of worried about Buchanan, like, because you know how good he is, and like you just haven't seen him in a while.
Yes.
Like, once again, like, he's super good. Like, don't people make sleep on him just because you haven't seen him in a while. He's very good at wrestling.
Yeah.
But I think also the same thing, like Division I training and getting ready for a national tournament and all that kind of stuff. Like, AJ's been training, but like college wrestling is a grind. So until I see him actually out on the mat and see what the product looks like, I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can go there yet.
It's a fair conversation for sure. I mean, right?
And I'm gonna ask David, before you do your picks, I want to ask Grant a question. We all know Cardenas has had really good international freestyle experience, but it hasn't translated over into the college wrestling because he's lost some matches to some kids that you just shake your head. Why do you think that is?
I think this is a very, very good conversation from the freestyle to folk style conversation. Like, there's guys that are just way better at freestyle. And there's some guys that like just are way better at folk style. They just can't figure out like the non-scrambling, can't go across your back type scenarios. I think a lot of the guys that have a lot of freestyle success and the guys that have a lot of like folk style success, I think in those like scramble positions and in just regular top bottom, I think those in two of those areas specifically, I think shine light on people that are just maybe more like takedown artists and once again, I haven't watched a lot of Jacob Cardenas's film to like really break it down to a degree where I could feel like, hey, I know specifically this is what he needs to work on. But I just think that there's a gap between the different styles that lends itself to some individuals where you're like, hey, he's just a really, really, really good freestyler. And like he can beat guys in freestyle that he would never be able to beat in folk style.
Well, there's certainly nuances to both sports, right? Like understanding how to get grounded and how to drive somebody up off the mat from being grounded. Those two skills alone can decide a lot of matches, where in folk style, unless you're running, they're generally not it's all action now. They're not calling that out of bounds stall call nearly as much. riding time clearly makes a big difference. And the other thing is I think folk style is going to look a lot more freestyle-y this year with a 3-point takedown. I mean, essentially, if you take me down and cut me, it's the same as 2-0 in terms of net points, where before it was 1 point net. So it was interesting. I was making my picks while I was listening to you guys, and there were some guys that I thought for sure I would have. Like I thought for sure I would have Silas Allred as an All-American, and I don't. So I have Brooks 1, Ferrari 2, Buchanan 3, Sloan 4, which is nuts because he's a returning finalist. Elam 5, Heidley 6, Smith 7, Cardenas 8. I don't know what, if anything, of my picks are surprising. I think Heidley may struggle a little bit. All those guys except Brooks are a lot longer and taller than him that are ahead of him on my picks. And I think that's a potential stumbling block because he likes to get in that underhook. He does some very, very good high-level things there. But they work better on shorter guys than taller guys. So I think that's something to figure out. I'm looking at our time, and I'm trying to figure this out. I don't think we have time to do 285. And then that'll next week we'll do 285, and then I'll have to try to do the math. We'll probably do everything else, and then our team picks will be done then based on I got to do the math and assign the points to everybody. But we won't – I can't do that on the fly. It's too much – literally too many calculations to do. I want to give a shout-out to Seton Hall Pirate, Britt Malinsky. He always – sends us the schedule, which I put on our Google document that we go through every week. So it's really nice to see what's going on. So matches started yesterday. The Army versus Campbell at Fort Bragg was last night. NC State wrestled last night. Oregon State wrestles North Carolina today. So that's a fairly interesting duel. Like, I think you'll see some hits there. I think 184 is a weight we talked about, which could be the feature match. There's matches Friday. Saturday is the Bellarmine Open, the Maryville Open here in St. Louis. Nebraska wrestles North Dakota State, which I have a couple hits. Iowa is at CalBAP, which I think seeing Iowa's lineup will be interesting. Sunday's the Clarion Open, where I think some of those high school kids like Bo Bassett and Jax Forrest are going to wrestle at. The Princeton Open is this weekend. The Citadel Tournament is this weekend. Cleveland State wrestles Iowa State at Massillon Perry High School in Ohio. That's where David Carr went to high school. So we're back in the grind, which is awesome. There'll be stuff to talk about. You don't expect early in the year to see a ton of changes in the rankings because there's not a lot of guys hitting each other. It's more like if there was an upset. So we'll do the 285 next week. Like we said, we'll review Pan Am's next week. And then, whatever other developments. And then we'll also review the Iowa decision next week because for sure that'll happen. There'll be unless they push the notification back, there's supposed to be a decision on November 8th. So, what does stink, GT, is I think it was already apparent that, you're a younger version of my, younger than me, but now you go, at least I had I got the baby face. Now you're beating me on that too. Like, just go back to the beard. Okay. Just go back to it. Like, let me have my lane. Don't be in two lanes. Okay. It's not fair to the rest of us. Okay.
Fair. 100% fair.
And good luck to you guys. You start this weekend as well, correct?
Yep. Going down to the Falcon Open down in Wichita. So big competition down that way. So looking forward to getting back on the mat and figuring out these new rules and getting the kids back into the swing of things.
That's a big open where you can, enter a bunch of kids in the tournament, right? And you guys obviously got a big roster.
Oh yeah. We'll be sending everybody that's healthy.
You'd be running around with your notebooks, making notes all day, which is an old Ron Mirikitani-ism. So I noticed that a couple years ago at the Life University Open. Saw you guys doing that. So it warmed my heart. So anyway, Marco, anything else before we sign off?
No, great to have college wrestling starting up again. Looking forward to it. And let's let the chips fall where they're going to fall. It's going to be fun to watch what some of these guys do. And watch out for some of the freshmen. You're going to be very impressed. There'll be a lot of upsets this weekend, and some of them will be freshmen beating upperclassmen that you thought had a shot at doing something, you're going to find out there's a lot of young talent out there coming up through the ranks.
I will say this, and, if you guys want to tweak your picks, Braden Thompson's a guy to watch at 184 from Oklahoma State. True freshman, is getting the nod. I don't know what catalyst was what. Like, if they're starting Braden Thompson because Whitlake left, or Whitlake left because they knew they were going to start Braden Thompson. But he was a guy, won a ton of stuff, another freestyler, GT, to go to your point, and didn't get to wrestle last year because he transferred, and first he was ruled legal and then not legal. So, like, he wrestled in one match for Stillwater, but not the state tournament, wrestled in the state dual meet, if that makes any sense. And then 2 weeks later, couldn't wrestle. He's a guy, if you're picking Oklahoma State to do better, and we talk about this all the time, where can you get points that are significantly better than where you're ranked? And he's a guy. Like, I'm not saying he's as good as him, but he's like a Shapiro, where, like, okay, the guy's ranked like Cody Chittum. Like, oh yeah, he's ranked like 19th. Like, Krazer's ranked. He's not even ranked yet. And if this guy placed, you wouldn't be surprised. Now, looking at 84, it feels like a kid could sneak into, correct?
You mean 174, David?
74, yeah, 74.
So not as easy to break into.
Right.
174 is pretty loaded. Yep.
Yeah, but I mean, you could certainly see him in the blood round. Okay.
Yep, round of 12 for sure.
Yeah, and then round of 12 is round of 12, and maybe you're better than me, but you're a senior and you thought you were going to win the tournament, and now you're looking at wrestling 4 matches to take third, and maybe you don't quit. You just don't wrestle quite as hard, and the other guy's a freshman and has got the world ahead of him. And so somebody keep an eye out at 74, because I don't think we talked about him last week too much. So, all right, for Mark and GT, I'm David. Thank you guys for watching and listening. We'll speak to you all next week.